California man has been sentenced for a deadly Gulfport shooting following a guilty plea. 22-year-old Makari Gassaway was sentenced to 50 years in prison for shooting and killing Brushan Charmaine McClam.
Gulfport police responded to Emerald Pines Apartments off 39th Avenue around 12:30 this morning. That's where they found a man and a woman suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. Harrison County Coroner Brian Switzer said the man, 27-year-old Brushan McClam, identified as a woman named Charmaine, died at the scene. An autopsy will be performed Wednesday. Switzer said the female victim, who is McClam's sister, was taken to Memorial Hospital.
Have you ever wondered how a seemingly innocent online connection can spiral into a tragic event? Tonight, we delve into the profoundly heartbreaking case of Charmaine McClam, a 27-year-old black transgender woman whose life was abruptly and violently taken. What began as a hopeful evening of Netflix and chill with Mari Gassaway, a 22-year-old man she met online, quickly devolved into a horrific confrontation. Join us as we unravel the series of events that led to that fateful night, exploring the intricate lives of those involved and the ongoing discussions regarding safety in the realm of digital dating. Welcome to True Crime Tales HQ. I sincerely thank you, my esteemed viewers, most especially my subscribers, for your endless support. At True Crime Tales HQ we share true told and untold crime stories. Please don't forget to subscribe if you are yet to subscribe to this channel. Charmaine McClam was born on May 8, 1995, in the bustling city of Gulfport, Mississippi. From an early age, it was clear that she was not just another statistic, she was a vibrant individual whose warmth and kindness illuminated the lives of those around her. Charmaine was truly a beacon of light, radiating positivity and encouragement to her friends and family. After successfully graduating from Gulfport High School in 2014, Charmaine set her sights on a future filled with promise and potential. Determined to carve her own path, she embarked on a journey toward independence and self-fulfillment. After countless hours of hard work and dedication, she achieved her dream of becoming a certified nursing assistant. This accomplishment was not just a job for Charmaine, it was a calling. She was eager to make a difference in the lives of others, bringing her compassion and nurturing spirit to those in need. Charmaine's friends often referred to her affectionately as a queen, a title she embraced wholeheartedly. She wore it like a crown, proudly flaunting her identity and living authentically as a transgender woman. This journey was not without its hurdles. Charmaine faced numerous challenges as she navigated the complexities of her identity in a society that often struggled to understand and accept differences. Yet, she tackled these obstacles with remarkable resilience and strength, embodying the true essence of courage. Her story is not merely one of struggle and adversity, it is a powerful testament to her spirit, determination, and the vibrant life she led. Charmaine was known for her infectious laughter, her ability to uplift those around her, and her unwavering commitment to being true to herself. She inspired those who knew her to embrace their own identities, reminding them that everyone deserves love, acceptance, and the chance to live authentically. As we reflect on Charmaine's life, it's essential to recognize not just the challenges she faced but also the incredible impact she had on her community. Her dreams were vast, her ambitions high, and her heart full of love. Tragically, her journey was cut short, but her legacy continues to resonate with those who remember her not just as a victim, but as a remarkable individual who fought for her truth and inspired others to do the same. On the opposite end of this tragic tale stands Mari Gassaway, a 22-year-old man who, much like Charmaine, was in search of connection in the expansive and often unpredictable world of online dating. Described by some as quiet and unassuming, Mari's background remains an enigma, with few truly understanding the nuances of his personality. As we sift through the layers of his life, we uncover a history marked by occasional disputes and conflicts, which raises significant questions about his emotional stability and the potential for violent behavior that may have been lurking beneath the surface. Mari's life was not without its challenges. Growing up, he dealt with various struggles that shaped his worldview and interpersonal relationships. Friends and acquaintances noted that while he had moments of kindness and charm, there were also instances where his temper flared. This duality in his character led to a complex persona, one that could be both engaging and unpredictable. The contrast between his outward demeanor and the inner turmoil he faced may have contributed to a brewing discontent that ultimately manifested in the most tragic way possible. But what exactly was it that triggered this transformation from a seemingly ordinary young man to someone capable of such a horrific act? As we unravel this story, we must examine not only Mari's complex character but also the societal pressures and personal experiences that may have influenced his actions. What led him to engage in online dating, and how did his interactions with Charmaine shape his perception of her? Understanding these dynamics is crucial as we piece together the circumstances that culminated in that disastrous meeting. By exploring Mari's background, we aim to shed light on the factors that contributed to the shocking violence, encouraging a deeper discussion about empathy, understanding, and the importance of addressing underlying issues that can lead to tragic outcomes. On the fateful evening of June 21, 2022, Charmaine McLaughlin and Mari Gassaway connected through an online dating platform, igniting a flicker of hope and potential for both individuals. They exchanged messages, shared laughter, and discussed their interests, creating the kind of anticipation that often accompanies a first date. As they arranged to meet for a casual evening together, neither could have foreseen the lurking danger that would soon shatter their hopes and dreams. The excitement of new possibilities loomed large, yet the reality of their meeting would soon take a devastating turn. What began as an innocent night filled with light-hearted conversation and shared moments quickly spiraled into a nightmare. After some time spent in Charmaine's company, the pair decided to move to a more intimate setting within her apartment, marking a significant shift in the dynamics of their encounter. However, as the evening progressed, the atmosphere soured dramatically. Upon discovering Charmaine's transgender identity, Mari's demeanor shifted abruptly from curiosity to fury. In a shocking and unthinkable fit of violence, feeling deceived, he pulled out a firearm hidden in his possession and shot Charmaine multiple times, extinguishing her vibrant life in a matter of horrifying moments. The aftermath of this chaotic incident was staggering, resulting in Charmaine's sister being critically injured as she attempted to intervene, further compounding the profound tragedy of that night. The horrifying reality of what transpired in that apartment is a chilling reminder of how quickly relationships can turn volatile. In the span of just a few moments, a night that held the promise of connection and understanding devolved into chaos and heartbreak. The violence that erupted not only claimed Charmaine's life but also left lasting scars on her family, particularly her sister, who was left fighting for her own life. This tragic event serves as a somber illustration of the dangers that can accompany online dating, especially for marginalized individuals who are often subjected to misunderstandings and violence in their pursuit of love and acceptance. Following the harrowing shooting, Gulfport police responded swiftly to the distressing scene at Charmaine's apartment. The chilling sight of her lifeless body, alongside her critically injured sister, immediately prompted an intense and thorough investigation. Detectives arrived on the scene, grappling with the shock of the violence that had unfolded just hours earlier. Their first priority was to secure the area and gather as much evidence as possible to piece together the timeline of that fateful night. They began interviewing witnesses, including neighbors who heard the commotion, and meticulously analyzing the forensic evidence scattered around the apartment. As the investigation progressed, detectives turned to surveillance footage from nearby businesses, hoping to trace Mari Gassaway's movements after the incident. This footage became a critical piece of the puzzle, allowing them to see Mari fleeing the scene on a bicycle, a detail that would prove vital in identifying him as the shooter. The footage revealed his hurried departure, which raised alarm bells about his state of mind. In the days that followed, investigators scoured the area for any additional clues, leading them to discover the very bicycle he used to escape, abandoned at the Oxford Point Apartments. This discovery, along with the bloodstains found on the bike, was instrumental in linking Mari to the crime. As detectives delved deeper into the investigation, they uncovered Mari's attempts to erase his digital footprint, having deleted his social media accounts and any communications with Charmaine. This behavior raised significant concerns about his intentions and mindset following the shooting. It didn't take long for authorities to piece together the evidence against him, and before long, he was apprehended without resistance. However, even as the pieces fell into place, the lingering question remained: what measures could have been taken to avert this senseless tragedy? The investigation not only highlighted the immediate actions taken by law enforcement but also underscored the broader societal issues surrounding violence against marginalized individuals, prompting a community-wide reflection on the need for better protections and understanding. The legal proceedings against Mari Gassaway marked a pivotal moment for both Charmaine McLaughn's family and the wider community. Charged with first-degree murder and attempted murder, Mari's trial brought to light the horrific details surrounding that fateful night. The prosecution laid out a compelling case, illustrating the violence that abruptly ended Charmaine's life, while the defense sought to portray Mari as a victim of circumstance, hinting at underlying psychological issues. Emotional testimonies from Charmaine's family, who shared their profound grief and sense of loss, resonated deeply within the courtroom. During the proceedings, Judge Lisa Dodson posed a critical question to Mari. She asked, "Why didn't you just walk out? I can't fathom why you would react so viscerally as to shoot somebody. No one did anything to you. The family will suffer forever, and you will have this long sentence." This poignant moment highlighted the senseless nature of the violence and forced Mari to confront the gravity of his actions. The courtroom atmosphere was thick with tension as Charmaine's family listened to the judge's words, a reflection of their struggle to comprehend the loss of their beloved daughter and sister. In the end, Mari Gassaway was handed a 50-year prison sentence, with 20 years suspended, meaning he would serve approximately 30 years in prison before being eligible for parole. This ruling provided a semblance of justice but could never heal the deep emotional scars left behind. Charmaine's family left the courtroom with a mix of sorrow and relief, knowing that while justice had been served, the pain of their loss would linger indefinitely. The trial not only shed light on the tragic events that transpired but also underscored the urgent need for societal change regarding the safety and treatment of marginalized individuals. The aftermath of Charmaine's tragic murder sent ripples through both the Gulfport community and the wider LGBTQ+ landscape. Local activists rallied together to honor her memory, organizing vigils that called for justice and raised awareness about the violence faced by transgender individuals. Charmaine's story became a rallying point for advocacy, underscoring the urgent need for societal change to protect marginalized communities. Her family urged the public to remember Charmaine not solely as a victim, but as a dynamic person who deserved to live her life fully and authentically. As we take a moment to reflect on Charmaine's story, we must confront the uncomfortable realities it uncovers regarding violence against transgender individuals. This tragedy is not just an isolated incident, but part of an alarming trend that demands our urgent attention and action. What valuable lessons can we draw from Charmaine's life and untimely death? It is crucial for us to foster empathy, understanding, and support for those who experience discrimination. Together, we can advocate for safer spaces and work to dismantle the biases that contribute to such violence. In conclusion, Charmaine McLaughlin was not merely a tragic headline, she was a beloved sister, daughter, and friend. Her life was filled with dreams and aspirations, all of which were brutally snatched away by an act of senseless violence. Let us honor Charmaine's memory by committing ourselves to fight for a world where every individual, regardless of their identity, can live without fear. Together, we can strive for meaningful change and ensure that stories like Charmaine's are remembered. If you found value in this story, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation alive and advocate for a safer, more inclusive world.
Now, Gulfport police are looking for a man accused of killing his wife and another man. The victims, Coritnick Graves and Alina Davis, were shot multiple times inside a home on Graves Avenue. We've learned from multiple police sources threats against Alina Davis have been building over the last few weeks. Police confirm she had a protection order against her husband, Christopher Antoine Davis, and he was wanted for felony domestic violence out of D'Iberville, and Gulfport police had no bond warrant on him for harassment.
On a quiet night in Gulfport, Mississippi, a love story turned deadly when a man consumed by jealousy ended the lives of two people who were simply trying to escape the wreckage of their past. Alina Davis, a woman known for her compassion and expertise as a counselor, thought she had found safety in the arms of a new love. She had left her abusive marriage behind, filing for a restraining order against her violent ex-husband, Christopher Antoine Davis. But Chris couldn't let go. His anger festered, and he stalked Alina at every turn, even attempted burning down their home in a fit of rage. In the midst of this chaos, Alina found refuge with Coritnick Graves, a seasoned MMA fighter whose quiet strength and protective nature made him the perfect shield against her tormentor. But even a trained fighter couldn't protect her from the depths of Chris's obsession. Despite everything, despite the restraining orders, the assault charges, and the looming threat, Alina believed she was safe. Coritnick believed he could protect her. But on November 26, 2024, that belief was shattered in the most horrific way imaginable. As they sat together, unaware of what was about to happen, Chris stormed into Coritnick's home, gun in hand. In a moment of unspeakable violence, both Alina and Coritnick were gunned down before they could even react. What drove Christopher Antoine Davis to commit this horrific act? How far can obsession go before it turns deadly? Join us as we unravel the shocking details of a tragic love triangle, and the tragic end to a woman's fight for freedom, a fight that cost her everything. This heartbreaking story serves as a powerful reminder of the dangers that can arise when domestic violence is left unchecked. Alina's tragic end and the loss of Coritnick Graves underscores the need for stronger protection for victims of abuse. While love can sometimes heal, in this case, it only fueled an obsession that led to violence and death. It's a story that should not be forgotten. Now we want to hear from you. Do you believe Alina's tragic end could have been prevented? What more could have been done to protect her and others like her from an abusive partner who refused to let go? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, as your voice matters in the conversation about justice and the realities of domestic violence. And if you or someone you know has experienced similar struggles, we urge you to share your experiences. Speaking out can make a difference, help others who might be suffering in silence, and ultimately bring awareness to the issue that impacts so many lives. This is not just one woman's story, it's a story that touches countless families. By sharing, we bring the conversation to light and help others find the strength to seek the help they need. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Together, we can spread awareness, spark discussions, and hopefully, make a change in how we address domestic violence in our communities. Your engagement matters more than ever. Alina Hinton was a woman who exuded warmth and compassion. A licensed professional counselor, she had spent her life helping others overcome their personal struggles, using her own experiences to guide those in need. Alina was the kind of person who could make a stranger feel like they were the most important person in the room. Her natural ability to listen, offer guidance, and provide solace made her beloved by many. She didn't just help people navigate their mental health issues, she inspired them to live better, fuller lives. Born and raised in Gulfport, Mississippi, Alina had always been a woman on a mission. A proud graduate of Tuskegee University and the University of Alabama, she earned her bachelor's and master's degrees with a clear vision, to help others. As she carved out a career as a counselor, Alina's passion for healing extended beyond the walls of her office. She was known for her side hustle as the cake therapist, a nickname she earned from combining her love for baking with her commitment to emotional wellness. Her cakes were not only a comfort to the taste buds but a way for her to connect with others on a deeper level. But despite her professional success and the many people whose lives she touched, Alina's personal life was anything but peaceful. Married to her first husband, John Fairley, she had hoped for stability, but the relationship was far from ideal. In the midst of her struggles with her marriage, Alina met someone who would change everything, Christopher Antoine Davis. Chris was charming, smooth-talking, and everything Alina thought she needed after years of emotional hardship. His ability to make her feel special, combined with his seemingly protective nature, convinced Alina to leave John and marry him in 2022. But as the days turned into months, the fairy tale romance began to unravel. Chris's temper emerged, and what once seemed like a safe relationship turned into a nightmare. Rumors have it that Chris' behavior towards Elena changed after he found out of her infidelity from a mutual friend. Though Elena tried to hold on to her hope for love, she found herself trapped. Arguments escalated into violence, and the man she had once married out of passion and hope soon became the man who threatened her life. But Elena, ever the fighter, took steps to protect herself, seeking a restraining order and filing for divorce. She did everything she could to break free from Chris's grasp. It was then, in the depths of her despair, that Elena met Kit Nick Graves. Kit Nick was a 52-year-old MMA fighter, a man whose career had shaped him into a powerful protector. With his calm demeanor and towering presence, Kit Nick seemed like the perfect person to guard her heart from the chaos that had enveloped her life. His protective nature was apparent to everyone who knew him. As a seasoned fighter, Kit Nick had mastered the art of control, not just over his opponents but over his own emotions. In a world that felt like it was slipping away from her, Kit Nick was the rock Elena needed to feel safe again. But even Kit Nick's imposing presence and training could not shield Elena from the storm that was brewing just beyond their doorstep. As their relationship grew, so did Chris's obsession. Elena had escaped one toxic relationship, but the past had a way of catching up with her. The story of Elena and Kit Nick, however, is more than just the story of two people trying to find love and safety. It's a reflection of the dangerous, sometimes deadly consequences of domestic abuse, obsession, and the failure of systems designed to protect the vulnerable. In the small town of Gulfport, where everybody seemed to know each other's business, the once idyllic backdrop of palm trees and ocean views now felt ominous. The streets where Elena had once walked with hope were now tinged with dread. Gulfport, Mississippi, had witnessed countless relationships come and go, but none as tragic as the love triangle that would forever change the lives of three people. The setting, quiet, peaceful on the outside, was anything but. And it was here, on the quiet streets of Graves Avenue, that Elena's final moments would unfold. The man who had once vowed to love her, now consumed by rage, would stop at nothing to regain control, leading to a brutal act of violence that no one could have predicted. Elena Hinton never expected to find herself in an abusive marriage. When she first met Christopher Antoine Davis, he was charming, smooth, and filled with promises of a life full of love and adventure. Their connection was instant, and soon, Elena found herself swept off her feet. In those early days, Chris seemed perfect, attentive, affectionate, and protective. Elena, still recovering from the emotional scars of her previous marriage, saw in him a chance at happiness and security. But that illusion didn't last. As the days turned into months, something darker began to emerge in Chris. His temper, once barely noticeable, started to flare up. Small disagreements escalated into shouting matches, and soon physical aggression became a part of their routine. Elena, in an attempt to keep the peace, tried to downplay the bruises and the emotional scars that Chris inflicted. She told herself it was just a phase, that he loved her and would change. But the reality was far more sinister. What began as sporadic outbursts turned into a pattern of control and violence. Chris's jealousy grew with each passing day. He became increasingly possessive, questioning Elena's every move, isolating her from friends and family. What had once seemed like caring gestures, checking in on her constantly, questioning who she spoke to, where she went, soon morphed into a suffocating control that Elena couldn't escape. But perhaps the most terrifying shift was when Chris began to exert his power through fear, not love. The emotional abuse escalated, but it wasn't until one fateful night that things truly reached a breaking point. Chris physically assaulted Elena, leaving her bruised and broken. She feared for her life, for her children, and for her safety. The man who had promised her forever had turned into a monster. But Elena, despite her fear, took the brave step of filing for a restraining order. She sought help, reaching out to the authorities, but the threats only intensified. Chris's rage seemed uncontrollable, and soon, he attempted something that would change everything. One evening, as Elena was inside their home, Chris set it ablaze, knowing she was trapped inside. The fire raged, consuming what was once their shared life. By a miracle, Elena managed to escape with her life by the intervention of the fire department. The emotional scars would never heal. She had lived in fear for so long, and now her home, the one place that was supposed to offer safety, was gone. Elena's escape wasn't just about leaving an abusive man, it was about surviving. She couldn't live like this anymore. In the midst of the chaos, she found solace in Kit Nick Graves, a man whose presence offered the kind of peace she hadn't known in years. Kit Nick was the complete opposite of Chris, steady, calm, and protective. He seemed like the shield she so desperately needed. Kitnick, an experienced MMA fighter, was a man who knew how to protect himself and others. His quiet strength and unwavering confidence made Elena feel safe for the first time in a long while. But while Elena had taken steps to escape Chris's violence, she soon realized that escaping the past wasn't as simple as walking away. As her relationship with Kitnick deepened, so did the danger. Chris, fueled by rage and obsession, couldn't accept that Elena had left him. The love triangle that was starting to form between Elena, Chris, and Kitnick became a powder keg, each moment more dangerous than the last. Elena tried to move on, to rebuild her life, but Chris's presence loomed over every decision she made. The emotional complexity of her situation was undeniable. She was caught between the man who had hurt her, who had nearly taken her life, and the man who was now trying to protect her. But in Chris's mind, Elena was still his. He wasn't ready to let go, and his obsession with her grew to dangerous levels. What Elena had believed was her escape turned into a twisted, dangerous game of cat and mouse. As the months wore on, her relationship with Kitnick became a symbol of her hope for a new life, a new beginning. But Chris's relentless pursuit of her love, and his overwhelming need to control her, put them all in harm's way. Chris was no longer just an angry ex-husband. He was a man consumed by jealousy, willing to do whatever it took to regain control. And with every passing day, the tension mounted. The lines between love and obsession blurred, and the consequences of Elena's choices would soon be written in blood. The question wasn't if Chris would take action, it was when. And when that moment came, it would be nothing short of catastrophic. It had been building for months, the jealousy, the obsession, the suffocating control. But on the night of November 26, 2024, Chris Antoine Davis reached his breaking point. Elena had finally found refuge in the arms of another man. Kitnick Graves, the MMA fighter who had promised to protect her, had become more than just a source of safety. He was her chance at freedom, her hope for a new beginning, a life without fear. And in Chris's mind, that was a betrayal he would never accept. For weeks, Chris had been spiraling, consumed by the rage of losing control over Elena. He had tried everything to win her back: manipulation, threats, even violence. But every attempt only pushed her further away. And now, as he tracked her movements, his worst fears were realized. Elena was with Kitnick. Not only had she escaped his grip, but she had found the one thing he could never give her: peace. It wasn't just the idea of losing her that tore at him. It was the humiliation, the feeling of being replaced. Chris had spent so long controlling every aspect of her life, and now she had left him for someone stronger, someone more capable of protecting her than he ever could. That thought consumed him. It gnawed at his insides until he could no longer ignore it. Revenge was all that mattered now. With a cold, calculating fury, Chris stormed towards Kitnick's home. His mind was a whirlpool of violent thoughts, each one more desperate than the last. He wasn't coming for a conversation. He wasn't looking for closure. He was coming to reclaim what he felt was his. In his twisted mind, Elena owed him her loyalty, her love, and he would take it by force if necessary. As Chris approached the house, the weight of what he was about to do pressed down on him like a physical burden. He knew this was the point of no return, the moment when everything would change. No more second chances. No more excuses. With each step, he moved closer to the inevitable. This would be the final act, the conclusion to a story of obsession and rage that had lasted far too long. Kitnick, for all his strength, could not have prepared for what was about to unfold. He knew Elena had been through hell with Chris, but he never imagined that the ex-husband's jealousy would drive him to this. As Elena sat on the couch beside him, perhaps believing she was finally safe, the door to their sanctuary was about to shatter. Chris burst in, a man driven by a single purpose: to destroy. The sound of the door crashing open was the first sign of danger. The shock in Elena's eyes mirrored Kitnick's as they both turned to face the man who had been stalking them in the shadows for so long. Before either could react, Chris raised his weapon. The room fell into an eerie silence, broken only by the deafening crack of the gunshot. Elena and Kitnick barely had a moment to process what was happening before the violence consumed them. Chris's fury was unrestrained, each shot echoing in the small room, tearing through the air with brutal finality. There was no chance for escape, no chance to fight back. Just the sound of a man whose rage had finally found its outlet. In the end, both Elena and Kitnick lay lifeless on the floor, victims of a twisted love triangle that had been marred by violence and obsession. Chris, his mission accomplished, fled the scene as quickly as he had arrived. The silence that followed the gunfire was suffocating, an awful calm before the storm of reality hit. Witnesses who lived nearby described hearing the shots, but by the time they arrived at the scene it was too late. The door was broken, the house eerily still. The lives of two people, both caught in a web of love, fear and violence, had been extinguished in an instant. The police were called and officers flooded the area. What they discovered inside Kitnick's home would haunt them for days to come. The bodies of Elena Davis and Kitnick Graves, two lives taken by the man who had once vowed to protect her, were found in the living room. The immediate aftermath was a blur of flashing lights, chaotic scenes, and the crushing weight of tragedy. Police secured the area, but the emotional toll was already taking root in the community. Friends, family, and loved ones were left in disbelief, struggling to comprehend how someone so full of life, someone who had dedicated herself to helping others, had ended up a victim of such senseless violence. Elena's family was shattered by the news. Her children, already deprived of their mother's love, would now face a future marked by pain and loss. Kitnick's friends and family, who had watched him fight so many battles in the ring, were left to mourn the man who had only ever wanted to protect the woman he loved. The community, too, felt the ripples of the tragedy. It wasn't just the loss of two individuals, it was the loss of hope. A reminder of how deep obsession can run and how far someone will go when they refuse to accept rejection. Chris, now a fugitive, would soon become the subject of a massive manhunt. The police had no time to waste as the clock ticked down on their efforts to capture him. But no matter what they did, it would never bring back the lives that had been taken. The damage was done. The families were broken and the lives of Elena and Kitnick would never be the same. This wasn't just a story of a woman who tried to escape her abuser. This was the tragic reminder of how obsession can destroy everything in its path. Love, life, and the possibility of a future. The final turn had come. And in its wake, nothing would ever be the same. Elena Hinton was not just a victim of a senseless act of violence. She was a woman who dedicated her life to helping others, offering solace to those in pain. As a licensed professional counselor, Elena poured her heart into her work, guiding her clients through their darkest hours, offering the kind of support that many others could not. Known affectionately as the cake therapist, Elena combined her love for baking with her professional expertise, finding ways to connect with people through both her culinary skills and her empathetic heart. She touched the lives of many, always going above and beyond to ensure that others felt seen and heard. But the tragedy that unfolded on November 26, 2024, shattered not only Elena's life but the lives of countless others who loved her. Elena's family, her children, her parents, and the people who cherished her, were left with an unbearable emptiness. A mother taken too soon. A daughter whose dreams were cut short. A friend whose kindness and strength would never be forgotten. Her passing left a void that could never be filled. Elena's children, already burdened by the chaos that had defined their mother's relationship with Chris, would now grow up without her guidance, her love, or her comfort. The ripple effect of Elena's death was felt by everyone who knew her, and the grief that followed was overwhelming. Kitnick Graves, too, was more than just a man caught in a tragic love triangle. He was a protector, a fighter who had always stood tall in the face of adversity. When Elena found herself drowning in fear and uncertainty, it was Kitnick who gave her the courage to move forward. Kitnick, with his quiet strength and unwavering sense of duty, had done everything he could to keep Elena safe. He had become the person she trusted to guard her from the nightmare that Chris had become. But in the end, no one could protect them from the madness that consumed Chris. Kitnick's legacy would be one of kindness and bravery, a man who had fought to protect those he loved, only to be tragically cut down in the process. In the wake of the murders, the emotional toll of the tragedy extended far beyond Elena's family and Kitnick's loved ones. The community too was devastated. Elena and Kitnick were not just victims. They were real people who had contributed to their community. Elena had helped countless individuals find healing, and Kitnick had shared his strength and expertise with so many. Their loss was a reminder of how quickly a life could be taken, how a moment of violence could forever alter the lives of so many others. The reactions online were a mix of grief, anger, and disbelief. Social media erupted with messages of mourning and outrage, as people struggled to process what had happened. Friends and family shared their tributes, remembering Elena as a woman who had always cared for others, and Kitnick as a man who had always been there when it mattered most. But with the sadness came anger. How could something so senseless happen? How could someone so full of life, so dedicated to helping others, be taken in such a brutal way? One commenter wrote, "Elena didn't deserve this. She spent her life helping others, only to be taken by the man who was supposed to love her." Another added, "Kitnick did everything he could to protect her." His legacy should be one of bravery and strength, not of tragedy. But as people reflected on the pain of losing these two individuals, another conversation started to emerge. The question that haunted many was how domestic violence could continue unchecked, how one person's obsession could lead to such a devastating outcome. Chris's actions sparked heated debates. Some felt sympathy for the mental toll that he may have experienced, but many others saw his actions as unforgivable. The overwhelming sentiment from the public was clear. Justice needed to be served, and Chris needed to face the consequences of his actions. As the investigation unfolded, the chilling details of Chris's violent past came to light. Authorities quickly pieced together the events that led to the murders. Chris's violent tendencies, his obsession with Elena, and his refusal to let go of her became the focal points of the investigation. He had left a trail of violence in his wake, and yet Elena's attempts to seek help, from filing a restraining order to seeking refuge with Kit Nick, had failed to protect her from the man who refused to let her go. The systemic failures were apparent, and the question on everyone's mind was, how could this have been prevented? 2 days after the murders, Christopher Antoine Davis was captured by police in Gulfport. The news of his arrest brought little comfort to the families of Elena and Kit Nick. While justice had been served in the form of an arrest, it could never undo the pain of losing two people who had meant so much to those around them. Chris now faced 2 counts of first-degree murder, along with charges for arson and assault, but for many the legal proceedings felt hollow. No verdict, no sentence could bring Elena and Kit Nick back. The tragedy underscored the tragic reality that, despite the best efforts of those around her, Elena's life was still claimed by an abusive ex-husband who could not accept the end of their relationship. It's a grim reminder that domestic violence is not just a personal issue, it's a societal one. The failure to protect victims, the lack of resources for those trying to escape toxic relationships, and the absence of real consequences for perpetrators contribute to the horror stories that so often end in tragedy. Elena and Kit Nick's families were left to mourn not just the loss of their loved ones, but the loss of a chance at a future that would never come. And as the legal process began to unfold, they were forced to grapple with a question that would haunt them forever. How could such a senseless act of violence have been prevented? The investigation into Chris's actions was just the beginning. But for Elena, Kit Nick, and their families, the pain would last a lifetime. And the story of what happened in Gulfport serves as a haunting reminder of the dangers of obsession, the failure of systems designed to protect, and the devastating consequences when love turns into violence. As we reflect on the tragic loss of Elena and Kit Nick, we are left to wonder, what could have been done to prevent this? Elena's story is not just one of love lost, but also of a systemic failure that allowed an abusive man to continue terrorizing her, despite her efforts to seek help. It's a painful reminder of how deeply domestic violence can permeate a person's life, and how difficult it is for victims to escape. Domestic violence remains one of the most persistent, devastating issues in our society. Elena tried everything to protect herself, from filing a restraining order to seeking refuge with Kit Nick. But in the end, none of it was enough to save her. And while justice may have been served with the arrest of Chris, for many the question lingers, how many more lives will be shattered before real change happens? What do you think needs to change in the fight against domestic violence? Do you believe the system failed Elena, or was this tragedy an unavoidable outcome in a world where victims too often find themselves trapped? How can we better protect those at risk? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters in raising awareness and sparking the conversations that need to happen. This is more than just a story, it's a call for action. Domestic violence affects millions of people, and if we don't speak up, if we don't demand better protections, then stories like Elena's will continue. If this story touched you, or if you know someone who needs to hear it, please like, share, and subscribe. By sharing this video, we can ensure that the conversation about domestic violence reaches a wider audience, and we can keep raising awareness about the dangers, the consequences, and the need for change. Every time you share this video, you're helping to spread the message and potentially save someone's life. Together, we can make sure stories like Elena's get the attention they deserve, and perhaps, just perhaps, we can begin to create a world where no one has to live in fear.
She warned police her own sister would burn the house down with her in it. Nobody listened. 1 month later, at 4:50 a.m., the screams that pierced through Philadelphia's Strawberry Mansion neighborhood that June morning weren't just from flames. They were from a community watching a prophecy fulfilled in the worst possible way. Inside that burning row house on Corley Street, a pregnant mother and her 2 small children were trapped, while the woman who'd made the threat walked free. What you're about to see is based on police records, court documents, and survivor testimony. This isn't just another house fire. This is a story of how a family dispute over a rundown property worth less than most cars became one of Philadelphia's most shocking crimes. A story where blood turned to accelerant, where a sister's jealousy burned hotter than any flame, and where the system failed not once, but twice. Because the most terrifying part isn't what happened in those early morning hours. It's what happened in the 30 days before, when everyone who could have stopped this chose to look away. Welcome to True Crime Tales HQ. And this is the Strawberry Mansion fire. Before we dive deeper into this tragedy, if you believe stories like this need to be told, hit that like button and subscribe. It takes 2 seconds but means everything. Now let's get back to what really happened that night. To understand how a family could burn itself alive from the inside out, you have to understand who was lost that night. Assad Thompson was 6 years old, just 6, and 12 hours before he died. He'd worn his first cap and gown. Kindergarten graduation, June 12, 2024. His mother, Ashley, had posted the photos to Facebook that afternoon. That smile, that little diploma clutched in his tiny hands. Nobody taking those photos knew they were creating evidence for a murder investigation. His sister Alea was 4 years old. She loved to dance, neighbors said. Would spin in circles on the sidewalk outside 2500 North Corley Street until she got dizzy and fell down laughing. That house, that specific house, was supposed to be their future, their inheritance, their security. Ashley Thompson was 31 years old and 7 months pregnant. 7 months. She was creating life while someone was planning to take hers. But here's where this story takes its first dark turn. And I need you to pay attention because this detail changes everything you think you know about family. The woman charged with murdering Ashley and her children was their aunt, their blood. Flight Newell, 44 years old, wasn't some stranger who targeted a random house. She was Alea's great aunt. She'd held these children as babies. She knew their names, their birthdays, their favorite colors. And according to police documents, she wanted them dead. But why? Why would anyone, let alone family, do something so unthinkable? To answer that, we need to talk about the house itself. 2500 North Corley Street. A narrow brick row house in Strawberry Mansion, a Philadelphia neighborhood that's seen better days. This wasn't some mansion worth millions. Property records show houses on that block sell for $40,000, maybe $50,000. The price of a decent car. That's it. That's what 3 lives were worth. The house had belonged to the family matriarch who died in 2023. And when she passed, she left behind more than just property. She left behind a powder keg. Because in her will, that house was supposed to go to specific family members. And Flight Newell wasn't one of them. Now Flight's sister, Sherry Jackson, 54 years old, lived in that house with Ashley and the children. One big family under one roof. Or, at least, that's what it looked like from the outside. But inside those walls, a war was brewing. And Flight had already shown her hand. May 2024, 1 month before the fire. Remember that date. May 2024. Flight Newell stood in front of that very house and made a threat that should have changed everything. According to Sherry Jackson's own testimony, Flight said, and I quote, "I'll burn this house down with you in it." Let that sink in. She didn't say she'd take the house. She didn't say she'd fight them in court. She said she'd burn it down with her sister inside. This wasn't a heat of the moment outburst. This was a promise. And Sherry Jackson was so terrified that she did what we're all taught to do. She went to the police. A report was filed. Official documentation exists. The threat was on record. And then nothing. The police took the report and filed it away. No arrest. No restraining order. No protection. Just paperwork in a filing cabinet while a countdown clock started ticking. 30 days. That's all the time Ashley Thompson and her children had left. 30 days while Flight Newell walked free, planning, preparing, recruiting help. Because she didn't act alone. Oh no, this gets worse. Charles Sumter, 67 years old. His connection to the family remains murky in official reports, but neighbors knew him. He was always around Flight, they said. Always lurking near the house. And on the night of June 12th, as Assad's kindergarten graduation photos were still fresh on Facebook, Sumter and Newell were together, planning the unthinkable. But before we get to that night, before we walk through those final hours, there's something else you need to know. Something the mainstream media didn't report. Something we found digging through property records and court documents. This wasn't really about the house. It was about power, control, and something much darker that neighbors whispered about, but nobody wanted to say out loud. See, when you dig into the court records from 2023, when the matriarch died, you find something interesting. Flight Newell had been living with her mother before she passed. She was the caregiver, the one who was there every day. And in her mind, that meant she deserved everything. But the will said otherwise. The will gave the house to other family members, including provisions for Sherry to stay there with Ashley and the children. Flight got nothing. Zero. Imagine spending months, maybe years, caring for your dying mother, already mentally spending that inheritance, already planning your future in that house, and then finding out you've been cut out completely. June 12th, 2024, 3 p.m. Assad Thompson walks across a makeshift stage in his kindergarten classroom wearing a cap and gown that's too big for his small frame. His mother, Ashley, is there, 7 months pregnant, probably uncomfortable in those plastic chairs. But she wouldn't miss this for the world. She's recording everything on her phone. Every moment, every smile. Congratulations to the class of 2024, the teacher announces, and the room erupts in applause. Parents crying happy tears. Children waving to their families. Nobody in that room knows that in 13 hours, 3 of these people will be dead. 6 p.m. The family returns to 2500 North Corley Street. Assad is still wearing his graduation cap, running around the house, showing anyone who'll look at his diploma. Alea, jealous of the attention, starts dancing in the living room. Just a normal evening in a normal house. Sherry Jackson is cooking dinner. Ashley is uploading graduation photos to Facebook. But somewhere across Philadelphia, Flight Newell and Charles Sumter are having a very different kind of evening. We know this because of cell phone records that would later become evidence. Multiple calls between them, back and forth. Short calls, the kind you make when you're coordinating something. 11 p.m. The house on Corley's Street settles in for the night. Assad and Alea are in their beds. Ashley, exhausted from the day and the pregnancy, has turned in early. Sherry Jackson does her nightly routine, checking locks, turning off lights. She has no idea that the threat made 30 days ago is about to become reality. 2 a.m. This is where things get murky. And I mean that literally. The street lights on that section of Corley Street had been out for weeks. Multiple complaints to the city, but no repairs. Complete darkness. The perfect cover for what was about to happen. Security cameras from a business 3 blocks away caught something interesting at 2:17 a.m. 2 figures walking down the street. The quality is grainy, but the builds match. One shorter, one taller. Walking with purpose. Not stumbling like drunks. Not casual like night shift workers heading home. Purpose. Now here's where the story takes a turn that still makes investigators scratch their heads. How did they get in? The house was locked. Sherry Jackson was certain of that. She checked everything before bed. But when firefighters would later investigate, they found no signs of forced entry. No broken windows. No jimmy locks. Which means one of two things. Either someone left a door unlocked, or the killers had a key. 4 a.m. The accelerant is being spread. And this wasn't some amateur job with a can of gasoline from the corner store. Fire investigators would later describe the burn patterns as methodical. Multiple points of origin, strategic placement to ensure maximum damage and minimum escape routes. Whoever did this wanted to make sure nobody got out. But they made one mistake, one crucial error that would save 2 lives and eventually lead to their capture. They started with the first floor, assuming the smoke would rise and kill everyone in their sleep before the flames even reached them. What they didn't count on was Sherry Jackson being a light sleeper. What they didn't count on was a 2-year-old's crying. 4:45 a.m. Sherry Jackson's great niece, staying over for the night, starts crying. Maybe she sensed something wrong. Maybe it was just coincidence. But that crying woke Sherry up 5 minutes before the flames would have trapped everyone inside. 5 minutes. That's all that separated 2 survivors from 5 victims. Sherry's eyes open. At first, she thinks it's just another restless night for the toddler. Then she smells it. Smoke. Not cigarette smoke. Not cooking smoke. The acrid, chemical smell of things that shouldn't be burning. 4:50 a.m. The smoke alarms finally trigger. But by now, Sherry can see the orange glow under her bedroom door. The house is already an inferno. She grabs the crying toddler and rushes to the hallway. What she sees next will haunt her forever. The staircase is gone. Not blocked. Gone. Consumed by flames so intense they look almost white at the center. She runs to Ashley's room, pounds on the door, screams her name. But the door is hot to the touch. Too hot. The smoke is so thick she can barely see, can barely breathe. And she has to make a choice. The kind of choice no human should ever have to make. There's a window at the end of the hall. 2nd story. Concrete below. 20 feet down. Sherry Jackson clutches her 2-year-old great niece to her chest and makes a decision that sounds impossible until you understand the alternative. She's going to jump. But first, she does something that breaks my heart every time I think about it. She holds that baby above her head. If someone's going to hit that concrete first, it's going to be her. The impact shatters Sherry's ankle in 3 places. But the baby, held high above her head during the fall, survives with barely a scratch. Neighbors are pouring out of their houses now. Someone's already called 911. The first fire truck screams around the corner at 4:52 a.m. But by then, 2500, North Corley Street looks like the gateway to hell itself. Firefighters don't hesitate. They charge into that inferno knowing there are children inside. And this is where I need you to understand something about hope, about how cruel it can be. Because they find Assad and Alea. They carry them out, still breathing, still alive. The paramedics work frantically, oxygen masks on tiny faces, racing to Temple University Hospital. For 3 hours, 3 torturous hours. The family believes they're going to make it. Assad even opens his eyes once in the ambulance. Alea's heart is still beating. There's hope. God, there's so much hope. But smoke inhalation in children is different than in adults. Their lungs are smaller, more delicate. The damage that's already been done is just taking its time to manifest. At 7:47 a.m., Alea Thompson Newell, for years old, is pronounced dead. At 8:15 a.m., her brother Assad follows her. Ashley Thompson never made it out of the house. Firefighters found her body on the 2nd floor, overcome by smoke before she could even get to her children. She died not knowing if her babies were safe. She died carrying another child who would never see the world. 7 months pregnant. Some reports say 8. Does it matter? A life is a life. But here's what makes this even more unbearable. As Sherry Jackson lay in that hospital bed, her ankle shattered, her family destroyed, she kept saying the same thing over and over to anyone who would listen. I told them she would do this. May 15th, 2024. 29 days before the fire. Sherry Jackson walks into the 22nd District Police Station in North Philadelphia. She's carrying a notebook where she's been documenting every threat, every confrontation with her sister. The officer at the desk looks bored. Another family dispute. They get dozens every week. She said she's going to burn the house down with me in it, Sherry tells them. My sister. Flight. She's serious. I know my sister. She's serious. The officer takes the report, types it into the system. Report number 24-22-031847. It's still in the system today. You can look it up. A official police report documenting a threat of arson. A threat against the exact property that would burn. A threat from the exact person who would be charged with setting that fire. But threats aren't crimes, they told her. Without action, it's just words. Come back if something actually happens. And Sherry Jackson left that police station with a piece of paper and nothing else. No restraining order. No increased patrols. No follow-up. Just a report number that would become evidence in a triple homicide. The neighbors knew something was wrong too. Miss Catherine from 2 doors down told investigators she'd seen Flight hanging around the house at weird hours. She'd just stand there, Miss Catherine said, just staring at the house like she was memorizing it, like she was planning something. And then there was Charles Sumter. Nobody could quite figure out his role in all this. He wasn't family, wasn't a boyfriend, at least not officially, but he was always with Flight, always lurking. The neighborhood kids called him Creepy Charlie and would cross the street to avoid him. One neighbor, who asked not to be named, told us something that didn't make it into the official reports. 2 weeks before the fire, they saw Sumter and Newell in the alley behind the house. They were carrying containers, gas can maybe, or camping fuel. I didn't think nothing of it at the time, the neighbor said. People be doing all kinds of things in these alleys. But here's where the story gets even darker. Because when investigators started digging into the financial records, they found something that changes everything. That house on Corley Street, the one worth maybe $50,000, it was insured for twice that amount. A policy taken out just 6 months earlier. And guess whose name appeared as a potential beneficiary if the primary occupants were deceased? The insurance angle opens up a whole new set of questions. Was this always about money? Was the family dispute just a cover? Or did greed and rage combine into something even more sinister? Because remember, Flight Newell didn't just want the house. According to her own words, she wanted to burn it down, with her sister inside. Which brings us to the morning of June 13th. The fire's out. The victims have been pronounced dead. And Philadelphia police are standing in the smoldering remains of 2500 North Corley Street. They know this is arson. The accelerant patterns are obvious. They know about the threat from 29 days ago. They have witnesses who saw suspicious activity. So what do? They bring in Flight Newell and Charles Sumter for questioning. That same day, June 13th, they sit them down in separate interrogation rooms. And for hours they ask questions. Where were you last night? Do you know anything about this fire? Why did you threaten your sister? And then inexplicably, impossibly, they let them go. Both of them, released without charges, free to walk out of that police station and back into the world, while 3 members of their family lay in the morgue, while a community raged, while evidence was still being collected from the crime scene. For 13 days, Flight Newell and Charles Sumter walked free. 13 days of knowing they were the prime suspects. 13 days of the community demanding justice. 13 days of Sherry Jackson living in fear that they might come back to finish what they started. 13 days. Assad Thompson's kindergarten class had 13 days of summer vacation they'd never get to enjoy. Alea had 13 more dance parties she'd never perform. Ashley had 13 more days of feeling her unborn baby kick. And their killers? They had 13 days of freedom that nobody can explain. June 14th. The Philadelphia Fire Marshal rules at arson. Multiple points of origin. Accelerant used. Detective Raymond Walsh, a 20-year veteran, takes the lead. Privately, he tells colleagues this is the most obvious case he's ever seen. The evidence is overwhelming. The May 15th police report documenting Flight's threat. Witnesses who saw her and Sumter near the house. Burn patterns showing intimate knowledge of the home's layout. But the most damning evidence comes from technology. Flight Newell's cell phone tells a story. Calls to Charles Sumter throughout June 12th, short coordination calls. Then nothing from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. A complete blackout during the fire. But at 5:23 a.m., 30 minutes after the first 911 call, her phone pings a tower 3 blocks from the burning house. She was there, watching. When detectives asked, she claimed she couldn't sleep. Went for an early morning walk. At 5 a.m., 3 blocks from her sister's burning house. By June 15th, Strawberry Mansion erupts. A memorial appears overnight. Teddy bears, flowers, and signs. Arrest Flight Newell. Justice for Assad and Alea. Ronald Parker, a 30-year resident, organizes daily protests. Killing babies? Your own blood? And police let them walk? Nah, we ain't standing for that. June 20th. The medical examiner confirms what everyone feared. Assad and Alaya. Acute carbon monoxide poisoning. Ashley, smoke inhalation. The unborn child, a fourth victim. Yet Flight Newell shops for cigarettes. Charles Sumter drinks at his usual bar. The community watches in disbelief. Then the internet explodes. A Reddit thread on r/Philadelphia gains thousands of comments in hours. Digital detectives uncover Charles Sumter's violent past, assault, theft, restraining order violations. Someone finds property records showing Flight tried claiming the house after her mother's death. The claim was rejected, but it showed year-long planning. A Facebook group, Justice for Ashley and Her Angels, gains 10,000 members in 3 days. They flood the district attorney's office with calls. Because in Strawberry Mansion, everybody knows everybody. And everybody knew Flight did it. June 24th. District Attorney Krasner promises imminent arrests. That night, Flight posts on Facebook, God knows the truth. Screenshots spread like wildfire before she deletes it. But the internet never forgets. June 25th, day 13. 6 a.m. 8 police vehicles surround 2800 West Albert Street. SWAT doesn't knock. Charles Sumter, dragged out in underwear, says nothing. Dead eyes. No resistance. But Flight? She's dressed, waiting. And when they arrest her, she speaks 5 chilling words. It had to be done. The booking photos haunt me. Sumter's blank stare. But Flight's eyes show something worse than guilt, satisfaction. Like a promise kept. 3 counts of first-degree murder. Arson. Conspiracy. Life without parole if convicted. But those 13 days sent a message. Threaten to burn your family alive. Do it, and still walk free for 2 weeks. But questions remain. The accelerant was Coleman camping fuel. Specific. Traceable. Yet no purchase records exist. Either bought months in advance or by someone else. Someone never named. No forced entry. Flight hadn't lived there for over a year. Someone let them in. The surviving 2-year-old kept drawing 3 people. Not 2. 3. A woman, a man, and someone smaller. Was Ashley's pregnancy the trigger? She'd have been visibly pregnant by May, when threats began. Another heir to that cursed house. The district attorney won't comment. Sources say the 13-day delay contaminated evidence. The Facebook post might be inadmissible. What if they walk? The trial hasn't started. Meanwhile, Sherry Jackson wakes at 4:45 a.m. every night. The exact moment she smelled smoke. She's moved 3 times, but can't escape that hour. Can't escape the choice she made. The house still stands. Burned out, boarded up. A brick tombstone. Daily, fresh flowers appear. Toys for Assad and Alaya. Messages for Ashley. Prayers for a baby never named. Assad's kindergarten class started first grade without him. His teacher keeps his graduation photo. That smile 12 hours before he became a statistic. But he was more than that. They all were. Ashley, Assad, Alaya, and the unborn baby weren't just victims of fire. They were victims of systemic failure. A threat dismissed. A report filed and forgotten. Family violence minimized. A black mother's fear ignored. $50,000. The house's worth. Divided by 4 lives. $12,500 per soul. That's Flight Newell's arithmetic. That's what family meant to her. Today, Flight Newell and Charles Sumter sit in isolation at Kern Fromhold Correctional Facility. Even criminals have codes about child killers. The surviving 2-year-old draws burning houses in therapy. Sherry Jackson raises her with a shattered ankle that never healed right. A permanent limp reminding her of the jump. The choice. The one she couldn't save. Detectives still chase leads about the third person, the camping fuel, the house key. Some stories don't get neat endings. Sometimes all we're left with is smoke. But we know this. Assad graduated kindergarten. Alaya loved to dance. Ashley loved her children more than life itself. We know threats should be taken seriously. When someone says they'll burn your house down with you in it, that's not just words. That's a promise. Somewhere tonight, someone is making threats. Someone is being told it's just family drama. Maybe if one person watching this remembers Ashley Thompson and her babies, if one person takes threats seriously, then telling this story matters. Because Assad was 6, Aliyah was 4. Their sibling never breathed. Their mother died trying to reach them. They deserved better than becoming cautionary tales. They deserved to grow up, to be safe in their own home. They deserved a system that protected them when family became a 4-letter word spelled F-I-R-E. This is the story of the Strawberry Mansion fire, a family torn apart by greed, of a system that failed repeatedly, of 13 days that showed a community their worth, of questions that may never be answered. But mostly it's about 3 souls who should be here, who should be starting 2nd grade and kindergarten, who should be meeting their sibling. Remember their names: Assad Thompson, Aliyah Thompson Newell, Ashley Thompson, and a baby who never got one. Remember them, because in a world that failed them so completely, remembering might be all we can do. If this story moved you, hit like and share it. Someone needs to hear this. Subscribe for updates on the trial and comment below. Do you think they acted alone? Who was the third person? Your voice matters in keeping this case alive. We'll see you in the next one. Stay safe.